Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so happy to have you here. Lawmakers in Trenton are returning to the capital city as the fall session is now underway. From taxes and traffic to the environment and elections, what are the topics they are tackling? Well, that's what we're going to be discussing today with leadership from both sides of the aisle in Trenton. Assemblyman John DeMaio is the leader of the Republicans in the lower house. He's standing by. First up, the president of the upper house, the state Senate, Democrat Nick Scutari. Joining us now is Senate President Nick Scutari. Senator, it is so good to see you, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we are officially into the fall, so let's talk a little bit about legislative priorities and goals for the fall. What are some of the issues you'd like to be discussing and tackling as we head back into Trenton?
Well, the number one issue that we've been tackling all year is affordability and taxes in New Jersey. What the state legislature has been doing is everything within its power to lower or subsidize people's taxes, particularly property taxes. We eliminated the sales tax for 10 days in the summer for a back to school program. We're reinstituting the energy receipts taxation diversion program, which will give more money to municipalities to lower their tax rate. And of course, the number one thing we're doing is a $2 billion property tax relief program. People should be seeing those mailers in their mail in the coming weeks. They should look out for those.
Yeah. Are those permanent programs that you have in place? Or are they programs that will only take place for 1 year? Like you mentioned, the back to school tax that was lifted for 10 days.
Well, that we're hopeful that this is a permanent program. And certainly we know that we have the appropriate amount of funding to run it for the next few years. We're hopeful that it can be permanent, but it is a $2 billion program. And we had the benefit of a lot of confluence of very good factors this year, a very strong New Jersey economy, federal stimulus money, and we've been good stewards of that. We're giving that money back to the taxpayers.
Right. And I think that a lot of people do want to know, because they understand, as things become more expensive, the state collects more in taxes. So they have a lot of money in certain areas, but they still have deficits. They still have other things that they need to pay. So a lot of times the taxpayer, it's hard to rectify that and understanding, how can you be flush on one area, but then still running deficits in other areas? Can you help kind of rectify that?
Yes, the tax receipts for New Jersey this year has been very strong. The sales tax and the income tax revenue has been very strong. That's why we're giving it back. The Democratic Party in this state that's been in charge for quite a period of time is trying to do everything we can to address affordability and taxpayer needs. And so the more money that they make, the more money that the state of New Jersey has. There's no doubt about that. And the high wage earners in New Jersey have had a good year, a good couple of years, and we're able to give that back to all taxpayers this year, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about public employees, because the State Health Benefits Commission recently voted to increase contributions from public workers for health care premiums. They saw some really big rallies in Trenton. Union leaders are upset. Can you tell us where you stand?
There has to be more to be done to control healthcare costs in New Jersey. And that's not just for public sector workers, that's for everybody. Healthcare is a very, very high part of what we spend money on each and every year. And the older we get, the more we spend on it. And these plans have been kept steady for a couple of years now. Now they're seeing, unfortunately, the chickens come home to roost, and there's been higher rates that have been assessed upon them. And we're asking the commission to do more to make sure that the pain is not felt by the employees as much, and the taxpayers particularly.
Right, and I think that's where some people are upset, because they feel like that some of the lowest wage earners are the ones who end up paying more of a percent, or it hurts the lower wage earners the most. What are your thoughts on that, or what do you say to that?
I can tell you that in New Jersey, the lowest wage earners in New Jersey pay the very least amount of New Jersey state income tax. It's a very low amount for low wage earners. So from the legislative standpoint, we don't tax them very much at all. But I understand that it's a higher percentage when they have to deal with higher healthcare costs. And that's something the commission absolutely should be dealing with. I know that at the state worker level, there's been a deal put in place where they're only going to see a small increase this year. And we're hopeful that that takes place statewide.
Yeah. So much falls under your leadership, and it includes the state Supreme Court. There are, the courts all over the state have got a lot of vacancies, too, at the state Supreme Court. Now, the governor recently nominated Judge Douglas Fischelli, a Republican, And this is somebody from your district. Can you first talk a little bit about this nominee, because he is from your district, and then I'll get you to talk also a little bit about this partisan balance that has always been maintained on New Jersey State Supreme Court. But first, your thoughts on this nominee.
Outstanding candidate. He was my recommendation to the governor's office. I'm glad that they went with him through an arduous screening process. Doug Fiscale, an appellate division judge with extraordinary experience, not just on the bench, but as a practicing trial lawyer before that. Lives right near me. I have a lot of familiarity with him. Very, very proud that Union County will have a member of the highest court, especially one of the caliber of Doug Fiscale, who's just an outstanding record across the board of accomplishment, extraordinary published opinions, and a Republican, which I think is important that we continue to maintain a bipartisan balance. And that's what Trenton's always been. I believe that we do it right in Trenton. Particularly, we don't have that partisan fighting that you see in Washington. That's why New Jersey's government works.
Yeah, well, for people who may be watching and not realizing, the state Supreme Court, you have an equal number of Republicans to Democrats, and then the Chief Justice is traditionally represents the party of that of leadership of the governor's office, which is a Democrat. So right now we should be having 4 Democrats to 3 Republicans. Can you explain a little bit about that tradition and why that is so important?
It's not always with the chief, but it's a 4-3 balance in favor of the governor's party. And we've maintained that. There's nothing in the Constitution of 1947 that requires that. In fact, the Democrats have maintained a majority in the legislature for some period of time, but that's something that I personally felt was good for the state of New Jersey. We're elected officials for everyone, and they're not just Democrats. So I believe there's outstanding Republicans as well in judicial service. I think Doug Fiscale obviously epitomizes that as one of the most outstanding, accomplished judges in New Jersey. Very proud to see him go on the court, and I believe it's right for everyone that we have that. The way we select judges in New Jersey works really well. We have an advising consent. Many other states, people don't realize that judges have to run for office.
Right, right. Well, and we've spoken with members of the New Jersey Bar Association over the summer who were very concerned, very upset, saying, you know, the courts are in a crisis because there were so many vacancies, and there are, and it goes to something called, at the state Supreme Court level, the senatorial courtesy, and that was what was holding some of these nominees up. And the last one, the other one, Rachel Weiner Apter, she was being held up by senatorial courtesy. So can you talk a little bit about that and why people were holding the process up?
Well, I think part of it is to make sure and ensure that partisan balance is maintained. One of the things that traditionally we allow is that home county senators have an input on selections made from their county, and that's part of this partisan balance. That's part of what gives each senator, even senators in the minority party like Senator Chiapese of the Republican Party, an opportunity to have a seat at the table. At the end of the day, New Jersey does it right, and that's why we have one of the best recognized Supreme Courts in the country because of the way that we select our judges. It's a push and a pull, but at the end of the day, we generally make the right decisions. And I'm very confident with Judge Fiscale as a Republican nominee getting through the process with flying colors.
As a Senate President, again, so much falls upon your plate as far as what happens, setting the legislative agenda, running sessions like that. But when you are back in your district, what are you hearing from your constituents? What are the issues that they're talking about? What are they saying that is important to them?
Well, you know, taxes are forefront on people's minds, and that's each and every year. Although this year I've seen more than ever the social issue of a woman's right to choose having been overturned by the United States Supreme Court. That's probably something that we're looking at doing next year in terms of codifying that. Putting that in constitutional language, perhaps. In New Jersey, we allow a woman to have a right to choose what she does with her own body, and that's been a particularly important part of what we've been hearing from people, unlike many, many times before, because people thought New Jersey was a safe place to live if they had an unwanted pregnancy, and we want to make sure that they continue to have that right here in New Jersey residents.
Right. Well, and that's one of the steps the governor took ahead of the anticipated decision from the state Supreme Court is to ensure women and the rights that they have now, that nothing changed regardless of what was happening at the state, at the U.S. Supreme Court level. But I hear you say that you are thinking about, or there's discussions about putting this into our Constitution, the state Constitution.
Well, it's not in there. Right. It's a statutory prescribed law that we put into place, but nothing makes it permanent like an amendment to the Constitution. If the parties change, that may go by the wayside. So that's something that I've been personally thinking about for next year.
Yeah. Well, what is the likelihood that that could happen?
Well, we're just going back into a fall session. It's certainly something that we want to talk about. We'll see how things go in this fall for the Congress, but the state legislature will be in full session in the next week or so.
Well, and as important as that issue is, there are so many other issues that need to be addressed and taken care of. Are you concerned that that particular issue can take priority and just really dominate the discussion, as opposed to getting affordability, health care, and these types of issues addressed that affect everyone in New Jersey?
Well, yeah, that could happen, but I know that we can walk and chew gum. We can do two things at the same time and more than that. And we've already addressed affordability at the very highest levels through our spring into summer session. And all of those programs are just coming into light now. Social issues such as that are still important as well for us to tackle. We tackled them in a very large way statutorily. And that's not for a discussion for this year. That'll be something probably part of next year's agenda. This year is going to continue to maintain the structure that we've had, keeping a very centered piece of legislative agenda, working with people on both sides of the aisle, which I've enjoyed my time in the legislature working with members of both sides and keeping government, and as they all say, they keep the trains move on time. State government's been working very well. We want to continue to do that.
Well, we know how busy you are, Senator, and we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and talk about some of the legislative priorities and what's happening in Trenton as we head back this fall. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Assemblyman John DeMaio is the minority leader for the Republicans in the state assembly. Assemblyman DeMaio, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Laura, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here, hopefully to get some point of view across here. Listeners.
Well, let's talk just a little bit. Fall is here, and what is it that you and the Republican caucus, what are you focusing on legislative-wise in the coming weeks?
Certainly current issues are, there's an issue with the health care. So there are some of our members that are looking at the healthcare costs going up and perhaps ways of dealing with this in the future. One of the things that I'm always looking at, it's obvious that New Jerseyans are overtaxed to a great extent in New Jersey. You can see that now. Currently, the governor has an ad on the Globe saying about a $6 billion surplus. A $6 billion surplus is a pretty hefty surplus, which means that Jerseyans have been overtaxed. And there's $2 billion of that that's accounted for, which would make it an $8 billion surplus. Is going to be in a form of a property tax relief, a rebate program called the Anchor Program, which we in the Republican caucus appreciate that as a return of money to the residents. One of the things that we've taken issue with is it's not until May of 23, not now, when people need help. So I understand next year is an election year for the entire legislature. And why the timing matters to them, but I think people need help now. We looked at more long-term, and we'll continue looking to more long-term, sustainable, permanent tax cuts for residents. We talked about indexing the tax brackets for inflation back to the year 2000. They haven't been adjusted since 1996. Federal government each year indexes their brackets to inflation. So, if you're making 50,000 20 years ago and 100,000 now, and inflation, you take that into effect, you're paying a higher amount of taxes on an effective lower income, which is not fair to New Jerseyans. If they would pass our bill, a couple making 120,000, a working New Jersey family would save about $1,500 per year. Each paycheck would be higher as a result of that permanent tax. We would have liked to have seen something like that, along with other things.
The state has seen so much in increased revenue because, everything is more expensive, so people are having to paying more tax into it. And the Democrats are talking about, we were able to do 10 days back to school tax moratorium. We were able to do this $2 billion property tax. But I'm not getting, if this is going to be something permanent. So is there anything that you can look to that you're, able to implement? Because, New Jersey's been, and it's always been, a very expensive place to live. And this issue seems to be one that's always on the minds of people. And now that we have surplus, is there something permanent that can be done?
As I said, the income tax brackets need to be addressed. Let me just say this about that 10-day sales tax gimmick. It seems like the Democrats are better at messaging than they are at actually producing results. They like the message, people hear, oh, wow. And some of them in Moriarty, I believe, said that if you want to buy a $3,000 computer, you'll be saving somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple $100 in tax. Well, I don't know anyone that buys a $3,000 laptop if they can't afford to pay an extra $20 in tax for other suppliers. The reality is it doesn't happen. The last two laptops I bought were $1,100. And there's not that many people that could have the extra resources unless they really need to buy laptops for young children. The reality is that they spend a few $100s on school supplies. It would be about $20.
Right.
And it's really more messaging than it is impactful, some things that would change people's lives. And they did it on August 27th, where more than half the state's kids were back in school already. So, I mean,
That's right. Yes, we
again,
did that. A lot of public schools started earlier this year.
not very well planned or thought out as to the dates. It should have been somewhere late July when people really were out shopping for school supplies. No one's going to go shopping for school supplies after school starts. So we'll leave it at that. Another thing that I've been working on, we really need to address is school funding. If we were to completely fund the school funding formula and then look at formulas where we've been overtaxed on the property tax level for decades and do pass through back to the taxpayer, cut the property tax bills, and then have the state pay its share it should be, not just give the money down for the state and let the school board spend it, but let's fund it to replace the property taxes that would be paid by some people. Now, it won't be all the property taxes, but there would be some reduction on the tax levy. And if we could do that, along with some other things like the energy tax receipts, we could see some property tax relief, which would be permanently built into the system instead of just changing the rules, making things cost more, and having the local property taxpayers pay for it. So, and we have fronted these things. We fronted these things year after year, and we continue to keep pressing on this. People need real, sustainable, long-term property tax relief and tax relief in their paychecks as well.
Yeah, I mean, people who are not able, especially after their kids finish with school, often they leave the state, or especially when they retire, because it is just getting more and more expensive to live in New Jersey, very expensive.
I see people all the time that my district, they say, you know what, my kids are grown. They've either moved out of state or to other areas. And the parents say, well, why should I stay here anymore? I could live a better quality of life somewhere in the mid-Atlantic to the south, North Carolina, South Carolina, wherever, and have more money left over in my pocket from my retirement to live better. And they're leaving. We're losing a lot of those retirees, and then they fill that house with someone, a family again with more kids, and puts more burden on the school system. If we were true to ourselves to help our people in New Jersey, the Democrats would join with us on some of these things. We've seen programs like the Anchor Property Tax Relief Program for decades, 30, 40 years. And eventually they reduce, they whittle them down, they fade away, they get behind on payments. There's still some property tax rebates that are due to people who haven't been delivered yet from a couple of years ago or a year ago.
Now, recently there were a lot of people at the State House, a lot of state workers. They are very concerned, they're very upset about a deal made that more or less raises their health care premiums for state workers. So can you talk a little bit about this agreement, what it means, and where you stand on the issue?
There are some members who are putting bills in to have more oversight on this. It seems like, I think last year there was a 2% increase, and this year it's like 24%. It's going to be difficult for some people. Now, employees at the state and local level pay a percentage of their premium. So it means that the local taxpayer is going to get hit with another bill here, as well as state and county. But it's going to make it a little more difficult for working New Jersey families that work for the state or teach in New Jersey to come up with the money that they're going to have to pay out of their paycheck for this. I don't, I'm not sure about the math. I haven't really had a real discussion with people who are there, but it would seem to me if it was a 2% increase last year or so, and now 24%, what happened last year?
Yeah.
We didn't have that many claims roll in 12 months. So unfortunately, that's a situation that I think is not good for people. That's our primary objective, is to protect and help people. But it seems to me like the adjustments are out of whack or something.
Winter is coming, and it costs a lot to heat your home. There is a part of the governor's master plan, and we've talked with people at the Fuel Association, very concerned about mandating for businesses and for apartment buildings, certain buildings, that they need to switch over from natural gas, from gas over to electric. And people are really concerned that this is going to just increase their it's not going to, it might help the environment, but it's going to cost more money, and not to mention more money that it costs to install the systems. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, you have the cost to install the new boilers, and also the electric service upgrade on each building to carry that load to run that boiler. That's a lot of BTUs, over 1 million BTUs. You have to import a lot of electric into the building. I just hope we don't end up like California, where they're telling people to turn off their air conditioners and unplug their cars. So when it's really cold, are we going to have to not be able to heat these buildings properly for schools and the like? That's one thing. And I think we really have the cart before the horse with this entire program. There's no doubt that over time we need to evolve into a different type of heating and cooling and energy. We haven't even seen some of the potential alternatives. Think about this, where I live, if you look around at the wires on the wood poles, will the amount of electricity that needs to be carried across those lines be able to be carried? Can those lines maintain that load it'll take to heat all houses and all these electric furnaces? It's just so poorly planned. We really need to work on the infrastructure first to deliver the electric before we try to overload the existing grid. This is Democrats messaging. This is messaging. They're great at messaging, saying we're going to do this, we're going to save the earth. Look, this will be an evolutionary process. There's fuel cell technology, there's hydrogen that needs to be perfected. Hydrogen can be blended with natural gas and use the existing pipes in the ground. Over time, we could better that. But to just all of a sudden change all of these things before we have the supply, or forget supply, the means to delivery for the electric, it's just nonsense. Again, we're going to save the earth, and I get it. If there's truly something wrong there, over time it'll fix. But it's not going to happen in 13 years or by the year 2050. It's going to evolve over time, like we evolved from burning wood to coal to oil to gas. It as the markets were there, and as the ability to provide those products to the market were there. But this is nonsense. The way this is being rolled out. This is true. This governor said he wants to be like California. Well, just read the news, look at the news. They're telling you to shut off your air conditioner and unplug your cars.
What are some of the issues you hear, getting away from Trenton, that you're hearing from the people who you represent, from your constituents? What are they saying? What are the issues that matter to them? What are they saying? Please get a hold. Please take on these issues. This is what is affecting my life on a day-to-day basis. What do you hear most often out there?
If this overall death by 1,000 cuts doesn't stop, we're out of here. You know, someone needs to convince me. This is some people talking to me. Convince me why I should stay in New Jersey, why I shouldn't just go to another state where the government's not in my pocket, not intruding in my daily lives, not telling me, you know, what to do or what not to do. I can figure out how to manage things on my own. And it's just overwhelming. You know, yeah. Small business people trying to run businesses are overregulated. And a lot of our mom and pop shops are our neighbors. in our communities that provide services that we all love. And it's not just taxes, it's rulemaking by DEP and rulemaking by other departments, the DOL or whatever, interfering with the way that some people run a small shop instead of just letting them flourish, let them pay the sales tax that gets passed through their employees and their income taxes, feed into the beast in Trenton that loves to consume cash by the billions. We're up to over 50 billion now, from 34 billion 5 years ago. We're up 16 billion. People are just tired. They are absolutely fatigued by the fact that they try to go out to work every day, and little by little, they're being a little cut here, a little cut there, to the point where, like, I'm done. Bye-bye.
Yeah, as a reporter, every time you cover a budget, it seems like the headline is largest state budget ever. Nature of the beast, I assume. But in any case, this is Lynn John DeMeo. We thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and to share your thoughts on issues that you find important and that you'll be covering this fall as you all resume business back at the State House. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you right back here next time.